Kia ora guys and welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max and I'm the host over here at this channel. We are just less than 2 days away from the Rugby World Cup 2023 semi-finals. It's been a really unpredictable World Cup. The best two teams in the world choked. They are gone. Wales and Fiji, they are also gone alongside the French and the Irish. That leaves us with the mighty All Blacks, the Springboks who are defending champions. England are the only Northern Hemisphere remaining in there, while Los Pumas have made a really good comeback compared to their pool stage exit in 2019. A massive thank you to my patrons as well. We're going to do a bit of a preview for the semi-finals, break down who's in the teams, and kind of just discuss, just a general chat about, who's probably got the advantages based on what's going on with the lineups. I'm just going to go full bias mode. We'll start off with the mighty All Blacks. Since the French and the Irish are gone, well, we're the best team in the competition. I did not think we were going to get this far. We had both the French and the Irish in our draw, and I was just approaching this World Cup with dread. I was terrified. I was like, no, please don't go home early, boys. And we made it to the semis. We might as well just win the whole thing now, and the lineup is pretty much unchanged. Having Shannon Frizzell as at third lock at 6 has just been really liberating for Sam Cane and Ardie Savia just to get all those tackles and all those turnovers, and Sam Whitelock, in one of the few changes, has been restored to the starting lineup, which I think is really good for this team, because simply put, Los Pumas are going to bring it in the breakdown. I've shown you guys in several videos how they're just absolutely brilliant over the ball. They're winning a lot of turnovers at the correct moments, and so with Whitelock starting, we'll be able to stamp a bit of authority on the breakdown early on. Mark Talia is the other change from the previous week. He's coming back from a bit of a story where he supposedly got lost in Paris, so was suspended, wasn't able to play in the quarters, so Leicester flying out Anuku came and is now dropping out as Talia is back in the team. Samisoni Taukei'aho also comes in for Dane Coles, and I think this is part of the whole discipline thing. Los Pumas have been very good at getting their discipline to be better lately, so I don't think there's really an advantage of selecting the old boy Dane Coles anymore to try and fire them up, milk some penalties out of them. You might as well just go for the boy who's going to just give you the chances at the set piece, be calm, throw the line out accurately, and most importantly, bring it in the tight spaces when he's carrying the ball, because he is an absolute demon with the ball in hand, Samisoni Taukei'aho. I love watching him play to bits. And yes, Brodie Retallick has of course dropped to the bench, with, of course, the bench rounded out by Finlay Christie, Damian McKenzie, and Anton Leonard-Brown. The All Blacks have only ever lost to Los Pumas twice, and so they are obviously quite clear favourites for this clash. But the big question is, with Ireland turning down the 3 so many times in the last game, can the All Blacks count on themselves to keep Los Pumas from taking a bit of a lead off King Boffelli's boot? I don't know. As we get to Los Pumas' team sheet, we see a relatively unchanged lineup as well, with Julian Montoya as the captain. Pablo Matera, this would have been his 100th test if he wasn't injured, but he's still on 98, as he's now going to miss both the quarter and the semi-final, so that's a bit of a tough thing. But Facundo Issa at number 8 is still going to be celebrating his 50th. They've got an all-star loose forward trio with Juan Martin Gonzalez, the open side flanker who I've got pictured, one of the true just general stars of world rugby, and Marcos Kramer. He's already had a few tussles with Shannon Frizzell, specifically over in Australia when Los Pumas first beat the All Blacks. It'll be very interesting to see both teams using that third lock in the blind side, just getting those guys to get some real good niggle, just carry hard and play hard in the tight spaces of the pitch. Thomas Lavanini as well, you just can't count on milking a red card out of him anymore, because in 2023 he's had really good discipline as well. Gonzalo Bertranu is the only change for Los Pumas. He comes straight in for Tomas Kubeli, one of their most capped ever players, into the 9 jersey, and the backline all star-studded. The key concern though is Lucio Cinti's defence. I've pointed out that he's not a very good defender in several videos, specifically when he got tried at 12 against the All Blacks. He has not worn the 12 jersey again for Los Pumas. Their bench though, much like the All Blacks, they've got the key players on for the key moments. Brodie Retallick, with all that experience he's got, he's going to be able to give a lot more carrying in the final stages of the game. Same with, Tamaiti Williams, same with Dalton Papali'i. Fletcher Newell is going to be really robust in that scrum. Los Pumas with Augustine Creevy playing his 107th test match. That'll be really good to see. They've also got Matias Alimano, who's one of their most caps locked of all times. Rodrigo Bruni, very experienced though, a little bit slower. He's the king of the turnover. Nicolas Sanchez, this will be cap 103 for him. And Matthias Moroni, awesome try-saving tackle and Louis Rees Zammit last week, so they're definitely going to bring it. I want the All Blacks to win, but whether they will is still up for debate. Los Pumas have done it twice before, and only 2 of those victories, both of them have come in the Foster era. Before we get into the England and Springboks game, that's going to be absolutely juicy. Really, just salivating for the set piece enthusiasts. We're just going to take a bit of an ad break, then we'll come back and discuss South Africa versus England. For those of you who watch my channel regularly, you'll have noticed that I'm in a bit of a 2-part series about how South Africa crushed the French dream and how they kicked France out of their home World Cup. Well, it worked once. They're going to try and make it work twice. They've got an unchanged lineup, which is really good to see. It's nice to see consistency, and you know what? I'm just going to call it out here. I think the 7-1 split was a potential red herring from Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber. It was a bit of a last-minute change with Quagga Smith coming in for jersey 24 at Twickenham for Villy LaRue came off. I was suspecting, they'll probably just see how Quagga Smith goes in the back line, just see, what they can do if worse comes to worse. But with Scott Barrett getting the red card, that just piled that whole replacement forward pack all at once, apart from Pieter-Steph du Toit, who was the fittest of that forward pack, and they just crushed the All Blacks by a record score margin. With this over here, on the other hand, though, this is, I think, a lot more convincing for the Springboks, because Corbus Reinach hasn't played as many minutes as you would expect from an experienced player, because Manie Libbok doesn't quite deal with the pressure, unless, of course, it was against France, while Damien Willemse has kind of split his time between 10-15 and occasionally wing and centre if worst comes to worst. It's good they've gone for out-and-out specialists to cover the entire spine. Dion Foree has played minutes at hooker now that it's 2023. Quagga Smith was third on the number 8 depth chart coming into the World Cup for the Springboks, while Faf de Klerk, Hondre Pollard and Villy LaRue all lead minutes for their respective depth charts at 9, 10 and 15. The Springboks, instead of using a 6-2 split, which is a terrible idea as France proved to us last week, they're avoiding the injuries, they're avoiding having a catastrophe with multiple backs injured and only having forwards to come on. They're just playing it absolutely perfectly, having, those 3 experienced players coming on to close out the game with other players in that spine. And of course, Damien Dialendi, he's going to get a bit of a contest, because now we go over to England, we see that Manu Tuolangian still has that lineup. England though, man, I don't know there. The part of me that still thinks Steve Borthwick is probably a bit inexperienced to be the head coach of a Tier 1 nation is telling me with the gut instinct, Max, Borthwick doesn't know his first choice starting lineup, England are a bit screwed, but then the tactical side of me that thinks, I want to see a reason behind every single selection. I'm thinking potentially Borthwick is trying to do his own version that's not as good as South Africa's version of having the best people on the pitch for the last few minutes of a test match, because George Martin has come into the starting lineup instead of Ollie Chessum, and Martin only played 10 minutes at the end of last week's match against Fiji. George Martin is going to bring a lot more power in the set piece, but does he necessarily have the experience to stand up to the huge pressure of the occasion? I don't know, man. Joe Marler's also come in for Alice Genge, so they've gone for a bit of a baller type feel with their reserve props, with Sinclair also there, Dan Coldis there to kind of establish a scrummaging, because something I've noticed is that the Springboks, their scrum is at its best in the final stage of a test match, so perhaps Borthwick's going to take a gamble and see if the Springboks can lose a bit of that early dominance and concede it to England in the first half. Maybe that's a strategy. It's very good to see Courtney Lawsler remaining at 6 with Tom Curry and Ben Earl, the 2 open side flankers in the starting lineup. Laws in there to combat against Pieter-Steph du Toit, because obviously Khaleesi and Vermeulen pretty good at winning turnovers. The lineup though, is Curry going to cut it? We're going to find out one way or the other. In that backline, they've also dropped Marcus Smith completely out of the matchday 23, and they've brought back in Freddie Stewart. I'm not going to mince my words here. I think this is just a straight up call to handle the high ball, because France and South Africa, massive clash, very little errors. But when France were transitioning between attack and defence, that was when the problems came up for the defence line. And I think with Freddie Stewart, a big fella, the English version of Geordie Barrett, in there to be a safe pair of hands under the high ball, he's really going to make life a bit difficult for the likes of Pollard, of Lebock, trying to use their boot all the time. You know, Creole Dialendi, they can kick as well. But man, oh man, very interesting stuff with Ollie Lawrence on the bench as well. Do England have enough of a cover for that high ball if they're going to use George Ford off the bench? Potentially. I don't know. We'll find out though, guys. As for my predictions of the semi-finals, well, I predicted Pool A and B completely correctly. I predicted that Wales were going to top Pool C. I predicted Australia would bomb out. I predicted Argentina would make the finals. But after last week, anything is up for grabs. The best two teams in the competition are no longer active. The defending champions are starting to look like the heroes they were 4 years ago. The All Blacks seem to have finally learned from a lot of the mistakes they made in the Foster era, but having played games that are equivalent to finals last week, can the All Blacks and the Springboks retain such momentum? Are they going to give England and Argentina the chance for an upset? My prediction for this week, guys, it's going to be that Rugby is going to be the winner of the games. I mean, the ideal winner, the favourites, they're pretty obvious to you guys, but you never know what can happen. And because of this unpredictability, Rugby is ultimately just the winner overall. The game as a whole is better off for this. Thank you very much for watching this video as well, guys. Just a big thank you to my patrons one more time. You can also check me over on other platforms as well. Got my Instagram, for example. I'm also over on Rumble, over on Threads. All kinds of places you can find me, though you can't find me on Twitter anymore. Awesome stuff, guys. Cheers for watching the video. I will see you later. Thank you for watching from Max.